Welcome back to Rahul Thinks. You've heard of the Chad, you've heard of the intellectual. Today, let's talk about how to be an intellectual Chad. Now, what do we think of? Let me move my face to the corner. What do we think of when we think of intellectuals? Here we have Sheldon Cooper from Big Bang Theory. We have the iridociclitis kid. We have me when back in elementary school when I won the science Olympiad. Some adjectives that come to mind are nerdy, socially awkward, narcissistic, maybe even snobby. And these are all stereotypes that are associated with smart or intellectual people, and I have encountered a lot of these stereotypes myself. And I think Sheldon from Big Bang Theory is a really good example because, he's playing a character, so it's very exaggerated on purpose. Now, people like to blame the media for perpetuating these stereotypes about nerds, right? However, the only way to break these stereotypes is not to complain about them, it's to prove them wrong. And the thing about the stereotype with smart people is that it's never actually a problem until it's too late. Let me explain. In school, which is where we are for like the first 18 years of our life minimum, school rewards us for getting good grades. Getting good grades in school gives you status. And you kind of get rewarded for being a good boy, listening to the teacher, and getting good grades. But the moment you leave school, getting good grades, being smart, no longer rewards you. That's why you see so many of these A students saying that they peaked in high school or peaked in college. In fact, there's a very good article on Medium talking about how getting straight A's might actually make you poor and depressed. If you're interested, it's not really the topic of this video. Give this article a read. It's right here. Now, how do we change this stereotype? Well, let's think about why this stereotype exists. Just as with all stereotypes, humans like to fit into neat little boxes so that we can identify with the group. There's this concept of in-groups and out-groups in psychology, and we have this thing called an in-group bias, and it's essentially the tendency to favor people who are in your group and to exclude people who are not in your group. And this honestly can explain a lot of the problems in society today, but that's besides the point. What this causes is this belief that if I am smart, then I must be socially awkward and nerdy. This is not a true statement, but it's something that a lot of people believe. It's a limiting belief. And the reason that you have this belief is because you have had this cognitive dissonance over years of conditioning. There's this cognitive dissonance that being a smart person is not compatible with being cool or social or charismatic. Those two worlds don't exist in the same world. So we have this cognitive dissonance and our brain thinks, okay, we must be one or the other. Let me tell you a story that better explains this point. My entire life, I was always the nerdy kid. You saw that picture in the last slide of what I looked like. That was who I was all the way, even in college as well. I was always that super nerdy kid who people wanted to cheat off of so that they could do better in their exams and in their projects and in their homework. Now, entering my 4th year of college, I finally decided to embrace the philosophy of becoming this kind of intellectual Chad. I started working out, I began to level up my social skills, and I just became an all-around better person. I just started to level up my life. And in one of my classes, I spoke to this girl who was sitting next to me. And I completely looked different. I had glown up. I looked different, a lot different than what I looked like in the past. And I'll show you some pictures later on in this video. And she instantly assumed that I was trying to cheat off of her and copy her answers. And I thought that was shocking because all my life, I was the person who would be asked for cheating and homework and that kind of stuff. But the moment I changed my appearance and leveled up my social skills, it became assumed that I wasn't the smart person anymore, that I was just trying to cheat my way through my classes. And that's a perfect example of how humans like to fit into these little boxes. Now, just because we think those things doesn't make them true. You can be smart as well as confident, good looking, and charismatic. So how do you change a stereotype? I think a great example to follow is the Indian community. When I was growing up, and I'm Indian, we had a lot of stereotypes. In fact, I've been called Baljit more times than I can even remember. And I was also constantly being compared to this guy from the show, Jesse. And there was all these stereotypes that Indians were smelly, that Indians are curry munchers, that Indians like don't wear deodorant, stuff like that. And sure, they still exist, but way less now than when I was growing up. And the reason that is because now we have had so many Indian people, or people in this Indian community, break the stereotype. They weren't just smart, they also were successful and attractive and confident. Now we have people like Ishan Khatter, who's like a very famous actor who's in mainstream Hollywood. We have like all the CEOs of all the Fortune 500 companies, they're all Indian now. I'm blocking the picture of Sundar right there. That's him. We have so many people who have broke the mold that the stereotype doesn't really carry any weight. So we have to apply the same philosophy for the intellectuals or smart people. Now, before I continue, you might be thinking, why does this even matter? Like, as intellectuals, why should we care about what other people think? This isn't that big of a deal. Well, let me explain to you why this actually is a pretty big deal. A current problem that's happening right now in the world is that there is a massive public distrust of science. No matter where you fall on the political spectrum, it is true that there is a public distrust of science. Now, I think this is a really bad thing for society. I think science is one of the best investments a government can make. And we're actively losing funding in science because of our current administration. We have this whole Make America Healthy Again movement. Now, this is not a political YouTube video, but let's think about why this might have happened. I think the easiest way to lose the trust of someone is to be hypocritical. If my friend was being hypocritical to me, if they told me one thing and then started to do another thing, I would lose my trust in them. And I think that's what happened to the average American voter in America over the past 5 to 10 years. And what I mean by that is we have people who don't look healthy by any means telling people how to be healthy. Just to give you an example for reference, this picture over here is President Biden's HHS secretary, okay? She does not look healthy by any means, but she was basically in charge of our Health and Human Services Department of the government. I don't think people really trusted this person to be our Health and Human Services secretary. Now, what I think the Make America Healthy Again movement is an overreaction to this. So now we have RFK Jr., who's like this jacked guy who is entering politics, doesn't have a lot of experience in healthcare, but he's charismatic and he just is jacked. And people see this and they're like, I want to take health advice from him, not from her. Let's make this guy the Health and Human Services Secretary. And now you have the Kennedy Maha movement. Obviously, this is a lot more complicated than this. This is a drastic oversimplification, but this is my pet theory. And I think this is why the average person has lost trust in science. How do we regain trust in science? How do we regain public trust in these big institutions of science? Well, we need the intellectual chat. We need people who are, one, qualified, which I think we had before, but we also need qualified people who have charisma and actually look the part to actually lead our nation forward. That is why we need intellectual chats. This is what's going to make our country progress, if that makes any sense. So that's why becoming an intellectual Chad, breaking the stereotypes of smart people and intellectuals is so important. Now let's talk about how to actually do it. Well, there's 3 pillars. Number 1, fitness. Number 2, confidence. Number 3, social skills. You master these 3, you become an intellectual Chad, and you break the stereotypes. Let's get into it. So first, you need to build a body that commands respect. Your body is a reflection of you. Now, you probably know this already. First impressions are extremely important, and your body is the first thing that people notice about you. If you have a nice physique, you will instantly command respect, no matter who you're talking to. I can tell you this from personal experience because when I was in college, this is what I looked like, this picture on the left. People did not take me seriously whatsoever. I was just known as being the smart kid, and people would just try to cheat off of me. And then later on, this is a picture that was taken in my final year of college. You can see I built quite a bit of muscle, and I look quite a bit different now. It's so important to build muscle. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Is because it's a reflection of you, right? The picture on the left is like this scrawny Indian kid who doesn't look like he has any discipline, isn't really dressing well, or doesn't look like he cares about doesn't look like he cares about how he looks. That's the kind of image that was being put out there. And what kind of people do you think wanted to be friends with me back then? People who were also undisciplined, didn't care about how they look, etc. Now, these people are the ones who are going to validate these bad habits, and you end up going in a downward spiral. Now, the good news is the opposite is true as well. If you focus on yourself, you start hitting the gym, not hitting on the gym. You start making that transition towards the picture on the right. You start to attract better people into your life, and then they start to push you to become a better person. And you might have heard the quote, "You are the sum of the 5 people you surround yourself with," or like you're the sum of the 5 closest friends that you have. And this is so true. So you need to surround yourself with better people. How do you do that? You start by building a better body. It sounds like it's distant. No. If you've experienced this, you know what I mean. And if you haven't, just do it and you'll understand. Your fitness has benefits beyond just building a nice body. Like, of course, it's amazing to build muscles, but not only does it give you a nicer body, it gets you better friends. It makes you more confident. It gives you more energy to do more work. It makes your posture better so you appear like people take you more seriously. There's literally 0 downside and infinite upside to getting in the gym and building a nice physique. It's the number 1 highest return on investment activity that you could possibly do. Now, every time I say this to people, I run into the same resistance, and people say, "I'm too busy to exercise." That is simply not true. This is what my schedule looks like. I'm typically fully booked from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. every single day, and still I find time to work out every single day, 7 days a week. If I have time to work out, so do you. And sure, some of you might be busier than me, some of you might be less busy than me. But the truth is, the busiest people often have the most time. The reason why is because they know how to prioritize. When you say you don't have time for the gym, it's not because you don't actually have time. It's because you're not prioritizing the gym. If I followed you around, if I was your shadow, okay, for an entire week, followed every single activity that you did from the moment you woke up to the second you fall asleep, I guarantee you I will find much more than 3 hours a week that you could spend exercising. And I think the minimum amount of exercise that you need in order to build muscle is 3 times strength training per week plus a little bit of cardio. Now, cardio, I personally don't like doing cardio, but you can make it easy for yourself. Every time you work out, you can just do 20 minutes of incline treadmill. So you just walk on the treadmill for 20 minutes and set the incline to 10. The speed is 3, and it's a breeze. It goes. You can watch YouTube while you do it. It's really nice. So you can either do that, or something that I've been doing for the past 3 years is just walking to work. By walking to work and back, I get like 10,000 steps per day easily. If you do strength training 3 times a week plus cardio, then you're on the right track. If you're not, then you need to be doing these things. So that's pillar 1. Now you know everything that you need to do to get into the best shape of your life. Now, number 2 is confidence. Let me move my camera right over here. You need to act like you run this shit, okay? Take some accountability for how you look. What I mean by that is, this is twofold, okay? 1, you need to dress well. 2, you need to have good body language. When I go to work, I shit you not, I see people who are dressed in like shorts, a t-shirt, have weird haircuts, have like colorful hair, mohawks, things like that. It just does not, it's just not professional, okay? You need to wear clothes that fit. You need to have clean shoes, be presentable. And the reason why this is important is because professionalism makes people take you seriously. If you pull up and you have this kind of mohawk over here, right? People simply won't take you seriously. Sure, you might like it, but it's not really about that. It's about being a professional person so that you can advance your career and actually make an impact in this world. If you show up dressing like this, like business casual, or I guess maybe this is business casual or business professional, I'm taking this person way more seriously than I'm taking this person, 10 times out of 10. And I know these are extreme examples, but in your day-to-day life, when you're going to work, you need to be dressing a lot closer to this guy on the bottom over here, just so that people will take you seriously. And not only will people take you more seriously, you will be more confident. When you look good, when you're put together, you will feel better as well. You know that saying, look good, feel good? That is so true. The second thing is body language, okay? I don't want to see you looking like this guy. And I don't even know if this is a meme, but this is genuinely what people's posture looks like. And it's really sad. Like when your neck looks all hunched over like that, it does not look good at all. And a lot of people, especially us like smarter people, we have like desk jobs, we're sitting hunched over on our desks all day. And that's what your neck looks like. So you need to be mindful of that. And honestly, the previous step, going to the gym, will help you fix your posture as well. A couple of other notes on professionalism is that, like, don't talk casually with your boss. Keep a professional relationship. Don't swear all the time. Of course, here and there it's okay, but don't swear every sentence. I know some people who swear every sentence and it's impossible to take them seriously. When you're at a conference, don't be the degenerate drinker. Act like a good rule of thumb is to act like you have the job that you want. Let's say your career goal is to be I don't know, like a big engineer at some company, or you want to become a professor, then start acting like a professor. Don't act like a student. Then you're never going to get the professor job, if that makes any sense. Act like you have the job that you want, be professional, and then success will come. Let me tell you a story about how this impacted my life. So I believe this was a year and a half ago. I went to New York to visit my girlfriend, and she was presenting at Comic-Con, okay? This is like a big convention, and she was presenting, so she had like her speaker badge and everything, and I showed up dressed up pretty nice, okay? I had like my nice black button-up shirt, I had some nice slacks on, I looked professional, okay? When I was walking through the convention center, people were coming up to me and asking me where I was speaking and what my event was. That's the power of just dressing nice. I had no business being at this convention, okay? I had never even really heard that much about what was going on in this convention. I was just being there to support. And just because I was dressing well, people thought that I was a presenter. Now, this applies to literally everything that you do. So take advantage of this effect and dress professionally. It's such a it doesn't take that much effort to dress professionally. Get some nice clothes that fit you well, and it'll make a world of a difference in your life. I know some people are going to say, well, actually, looks don't matter. Yeah, no, that's not true. The truth is that, yes, looks obviously matter. Yes, there are diminishing returns. That's why I wouldn't recommend getting like super into the whole looks maxing thing. There's nothing wrong with it inherently, but there are diminishing returns to where you can spend your time doing something better with your life. But in general, the better you look, the more respect that you will get from the people around you. And in turn, you will become more confident, and there's this positive feedback loop, and life will just keep getting better because you look good. It's crazy how that works. If you still don't believe me, search up the halo effect or pretty privilege. Those are two perfect examples of how looks, in fact, do matter. Anyway, let's move on to the next pillar, which is, let me move my camera again. Don't be a weirdo. Please do not contribute to the stereotypes that exist, because too many smart people don't work on their social skills and they are just weird. That's just the simple fact of the matter. Being lonely is not an excuse to not have social skills. Trust me, I know it can be very lonely to be in like one of these intellectual pursuits. I am a PhD student and I'm the only student in my lab. And that means for 8 to 12 hours a day, I am literally by myself in the lab. But that is not going to stop me from developing social skills. You can still go out there and talk to people and have a social life. It's hard, but it's not impossible. And I guarantee that most of the people watching this video do in fact have some kind of coworkers or family that they live with where it's not as extreme as this. Now, communication is a skill, okay? Social skills is just communication. That's what this all is, okay? And it's a skill. How do you think Usain Bolt got good at running? Well, he ran a lot. How do you think Michael Phelps got good at swimming? Well, he swam a lot. The easiest way to improve your communication is to communicate a lot. You get better by practicing. Put yourself in social situations. The best ways that I have improved my own social skills is to go to school events, go to like department events, I'm telling you this from like the academic side of things, so maybe this won't apply to you, but go to like socials, join a club, join a student organization, join a community club. You don't have to be in school for that. And just put yourself in situations where you have to talk to people. Now, if you're really looking to improve your communication, which I think is a worthwhile pursuit, there is a quote by the creator Vin Jiang. His picture's right here. He says that no matter how good your technical skill is, and as us intellectuals, we tend to really prioritize being very good at the technicalities of things. We're very good. We're very good technically, but our communication tends to not be that good. However, if you have 10 out of 10 technical skills and 3 out of 10 communication skills, what does the world think you are? They think you are a 3 out of 10 person. So how do you think you're going to get hired? How do you think you're going to get a job? That's why communication is so important. If you don't even have to have perfect technical skills. You can be like a 6 out of 10 technical skills, but if your communication skills are a 10 out of 10, people will think that you're like at least an 8 out of 10. That's the power of communication. Now, if you'd like to improve your communication skills, like I do, I recommend following a few creators. One is Vin Jiang. Recommend following him, watching his videos. They're very good. Another creator I like, he's on TikTok. I haven't really watched him that much on YouTube, but on TikTok, Higher Up Wellness. He in fact has this speaking challenge. So like I said, you get better by practicing, right? So he has a 60-second speaking challenge where for like 60 days in a row, you just talk to the camera and post. I think it's a very good thing to do. Props to him for doing that. And a great book for improving your social skills is How to Win Friends and Influence People. It is a timeless classic. I like to read this book once every couple months. Now, I think I already harped enough about why communication is important, but in terms of your career, there are no jobs where you don't have to work with people. That is just simply like, it is just a fact. Networking is part of the job. You need to be able to work with people, which is why communication is important. Now, cheat code for communication skills is to organize your own social events. This is what I do. And it ties in with all three pillars. Isn't that crazy? I like to organize sports events like pickleball. I did movie nights. I did a book club. It doesn't really matter what it is. Just get together with some friends and just invite people. It'll be a blast. This is a pickleball event that I organized just yesterday, actually. So super fun. Yeah, definitely recommend doing that. And it covers all three pillars, right? If you do a social event that has some fitness element to it, right? This was cardio. So we did pillar 1, fitness. I was the one who organized it. So there's your confidence. You developed that by leading people. And, I was hanging out with some friends. It was great. I had a blast. It was social skills were developed. Anyway, that is the 3 pillars of becoming an intellectual Chad. This is what I envision he looks like. ChatGPT made that for me. But I'd like to wrap up this video with a few reminders, right? First, hold on, let's make this load. First, it takes time, okay? If you do the 3 pillars, you will become an intellectual Chad. However, it takes time for the world to change its perception of you, right? Because you have a reputation. Your reputation is built on years of what you've shown to the world. Now, you yourself can change your perception of yourself very quickly, right? You start doing the good habits, your perception of yourself changes very quickly. However, your family, your friends who've seen you, like, they don't see the inside of your head. They only see what you present outwards, right? Even if you've changed internally, it takes a long time for the rest of the world to catch up. So just keep that in mind. It takes time for the world to change its perception of you. Now, obviously, if you want to shortcut this, you want the world to see the new you faster. You want to make like higher level friends faster. You want to fast track your transformation. The cheat code to do that is to literally just move to a new environment. If you can move, just move. Then this is all fast tracked. If you can't move, I totally get it. I didn't end up moving. It just took a really long time for the world to change its perception of me. Next reminder is that stereotypes exist for a reason. There are stereotypes everywhere, okay, both positive and negative, and they exist for a reason. Okay, they exist because there are people who actually do indeed follow the stereotype. Now, in order to break them, you need to become a role model. Just like we went over in the example of the Indian community, you need to become a role model. People who are watching this video, you are the next generation of intellectual Chads who future generations will look up to see, wow, this is what it means to pursue something intellectual. This is what our future scientists, engineers will look like. That's what the intellectual Chad is. So I want you to break the mold and become a role model for the future generations to come. And finally, you get to choose how you're perceived in the world. I think that perfectly sums up this video. No matter what stereotypes people like to attach to you, ultimately it is you who gets to choose how you're perceived in the world. That is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. This is Rahul Thinks, and I will see you next time.